The Indiana Hoosiers remain as watchable as any team in the country. Sara Scalia is here to join us to talk about why that is. She's a big part of it. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Moren for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 160,000 of you showed up in October alone to listen to us 6 days a week. The way we show up for you means the world. Of course, it is not just me, but the incredible team going over at thenexthoops.com, covering all things women's basketball. We had over 1.1 million readers in October alone. We will have our Big Ten reporter live in Maine for the Mackenzie Holmes homecoming game coming up later this week. So the coverage will continue. Make sure you're subscribing. $9 a month, $72 a year, thenexthoops.com. And we have done a lot of coverage of Indiana Hoosiers basketball. It is a fascinating team. Sara, you are a little bit of a later addition, having transferred over from University of Minnesota. But you said something so interesting in my mind back on Media Day, where you said, we do a lot of things other programs don't do. And I wonder if you'd take me through what's the biggest single thing you had in mind when you were saying that to those of us gathered at Media Day?
I think the big thing at Indiana is just the work that everyone puts in. Everyone on the team is really committed to themselves, working on their game specifically and how they can improve to help the team. So I think a big thing coming here was just seeing everyone put in extra work outside of practice. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's led to a lot of success for our team.
We're going to talk a lot in segment one in a nerdy kind of way, talking about your game by the numbers, which is something that I find very fascinating. Segment two, we're going to be talking bigger picture about how you fit into what's happening in Indiana and the way you see the future for you as well. But the place I want to start is just, and I'm just going to be honest and real about it. You were obviously a lousy free throw shooter last year. You only made 91% of your free throws. You worked obviously hard at it. You've gotten that number up to a respectable 100% so far. Take me through, really, how do you do that? How do you shoot free throws at that level, and how do you find a way to even get better at it?
I think a big thing, I just consistently work on my free throws, especially when I'm tired in games. That's a big thing, and I think it's one of the easiest baskets I'll probably get. No one guarding me, so obviously I want to hit my shots when I get to the line for sure. And yeah, just continuously working on it.
What's the routine? What's the free throw routine, and how early did you have that routine?
Oh, my free throw routine is pretty easy. It's just like 2 dribbles, shot, basically nothing else. And I've done that since as far as I can remember. I don't remember ever changing it.
You think that matters? Do you think that is, having that kind of consistency in your routine matters? And does that play a part in, because we'll get into it, but your efficiency is off the charts from basically all 3 levels. Is that part of making a great shooter?
Oh, yeah, I think for sure consistency is a big thing. I knew my routine very early on and wanted to stick to it and never kind of change that. So I knew that was kind of the last of my worries was my routine and just kind of continuously working to hit my shots at the line.
Obviously, it's at the line, but it's everywhere. Early on, you are a 50, 40, 100 player, as we talked about at the top. The thing that I think is most interesting to me when I look at your game and the way it's evolved here in 23, 24 so far is your ability to finish at the rim. And so CBB Analytics breaks it down by range. You look around the rim, and last year, 19 for 37, a very respectable number of shots made right at the rim. You are 12 for 13 at the rim so far this year. Just a really significant jump forward. Somehow, at like a Mackenzie Holmes level finishing at the rim, but you're doing it obviously without the same kind of size. You're doing it in a true 3-level game. How has that evolution happened, and how much of that was a focus for you this offseason?
Yeah, I think that was one of my biggest focus in the off season was definitely finishing around the rim. I kind of last year didn't really use my body as much as I could have and kind of shied away from contact. And this year, a big focus for me was kind of finishing through contact. I'm not always going to get the foul call, and just kind of finishing around the basket was what kind of opened up a lot more for me.
You are also contributing significantly at the defensive end. One of the numbers I like to use is defensive points per possession. Synergy gives that to us. You're at 0.717, which obviously would be a helpful thing at the defensive side of the ball, regardless. When it comes from somebody with your offensive array, the net is so significant for this Indiana team. What do you do on the defensive side of things? Is it just a question of hearing your teammates more, being more connected directly? How do you practice defense? Because it is so much of a collaborative thing.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me was just kind of staying in front of the ball because obviously I can use my quickness to my advantage, especially on the defensive end. So I think a big thing was just being able to stay in front of the ball, and then obviously off the ball, I've had to work on that a little bit, and just being in help when I need to be. And then coaches do a really good job at scouting and knowing personnel. So I think that's something I really focus on too, whether they're a shooter or more of a driver helps for sure.
It's really interesting to me. And again, I know I keep going back to the same word, efficiency, but you look at it across the board and it's what you bring to the game. So I want to tackle a couple of those aspects of it and wonder how much these are team specific. I want to start with the assist percentage. Your assist percentage is north of 15 so far this year. That's a jump over 9.4 last year. Of course, there is a change with Grace Berger having moved on to the WNBA. How much is being more of a facilitator part of what Teri has asked of you, and how much of it is it what you've asked of yourself?
Yeah, that's definitely something coach has kind of made me aware of, is being more of a facilitator, especially with Grace gone. I'm probably going to be a little bit more involved in the offense, and they're going to, when I'm hitting my shots, they're going to focus more on me, which will open it up for others, especially in the pick and roll game, which is something I've definitely been working on with our post players.
And the other part of this, and I think this is so notable, is you're looking to create for others more, but it has not come at the expense of your overall decision making. There's this crazy stat so far. Your turnover percentage is 3.4%. Now, if you go by, the WNBA, Elena Deladon's been the best in the history of the league at that. She's right around 6.5%. Brianna Stewart in some of her best years is right around 7%. It's early, it's a small sample size, but it's evidence that right off the bat, you are finding ways to avoid making mistakes. Is that the game slowing down for you? Are there things you're seeing? How has that come about so far?
I feel like just being a little bit more involved in the game has definitely helped a lot, and helped me just kind of focus in on what I need to do offensively and defensively. And obviously, my goal is to open it up for others. And obviously, if Mac gets double or something, kick out and hit my shots. It's hard to guard. So yeah, it's definitely something to focus on.
30 and a half minutes a game so far. You're obviously a vital contributor here. There was this quote from your coach last year, and I keep coming back to it, where she said, she was the missing piece. How much does that challenge you? How much do you feel pressure that goes along with that? What was your response to hearing that? And how often are you hearing that internally from her as you're accommodating yourself to life here at Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel a whole lot of pressure with it. Obviously, my goal is to kind of come in and play my role and what Coach Moren asked me to do. So I think that's kind of just what I really focus on. Obviously, she's one of the best coaches I've ever been coached by. So listening to what she has to say to me and how I can improve my game and obviously use my strengths to my advantage when I do get the opportunity.
It is a remarkable season you're having so far. Just the beginning, I am quite certain. But I want to get into in segment 2 a little bit more of how it feels too. So we'll be back right after this to talk about the feel of this season for Sara Scalia in Indiana. But first, very excited to talk to you guys about eBay Motors, because eBay Motors is doing something very interesting. They've teamed up with our Locked On Fantasy Basketball host, Josh Lloyd, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week, Josh is going to provide you with some players that are a guaranteed fit on your roster. So here's who Josh picked out for the eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. He has Jaden Ivey, he has Gordon Hayward, he has Sadiq Bey, Scoot Henderson, but he has Al Horford. And that does my heart good, because if Al Horford is still producing, then I can maintain the illusion that I am young. And Al Horford has started 5 games already in Boston. Kristaps Porzingis is injury prone, and that often leads to more opportunities. Stick with Al. That's what Josh had to say about it. And of course, make sure you are sticking with eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Again, to me, this is such a big deal. I know nothing about cars, but I know that my car needs to run. And so that they have brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, whatever your car needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you cannot do better taking it anywhere else. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So it must have been pretty terrible to have to go down to the islands over Thanksgiving. How sad were you to experience tropical weather rather than having Thanksgiving weekend back home in Minnesota? Was it similar temperatures?
Oh, I mean, Florida was definitely a lot nicer than back home, but no, yeah, it was a fun time, definitely down in Florida.
A fun time, but also obviously a very significant time for this team. And again, it was hard when I watched you guys not to feel like this was a team that had things together. And I just wonder how much you think the summer trip you took played a part in getting the type of continuity that we saw in the game, particularly a big win over Princeton, who I agree with your coach is one of the top 25 teams in the country.
Yeah, I think our 2 games we had in Florida definitely, helped bring our team a little closer together, and we know what we can accomplish. We just kind of got to come together and work together to be able to do that, and that kind of showed in Florida. We kind of had a battle to the end against Princeton, and then obviously we beat a good Tennessee team. So I think a big thing for us is just believing in how good our team can be, and chemistry has been a big thing. We have just about the same team as we do last year outside of Grace, so that definitely plays a role as we all know each other pretty well.
The thing, I hesitate to overstate it, but it was a near perfect game you played in that game against Princeton. And your team needed every bit of it. But to put up 28 points is obviously the big takeaway and the number one. But I look and I see you played over 38 minutes and you did not have a turnover. It was a flawless example of team basketball. You made 5 threes, 7 rebounds, doing a little bit of everything. Do you pride yourself on being that kind of all-around player? And how do you account for being able to manifest so many of these different skills?
Yeah, I think that's something I've definitely tried improving on. Just a couple years ago, I was kind of known as just a 3-point shooter. So as the time's gone on, I've definitely evolved my game into doing more than just shooting threes, and specifically on the defensive end as I've gotten at Indiana is obviously something they've really focused on. So I've really tried to lock in on the defensive end, because I know that that's what Indiana is really big on. That's how we're going to win games. So I think that's been a big thing for me, is just kind of focus on involving my game more than just being a shooter, and doing other things on the court that'll help the team.
Couple of key steals in that game as well. To get those types of wins and putting yourself in a position where you are playing for seeding. I know that last year that was a team that had Final Four aspirations. It was a team that, quite frankly, I'm on the record on this show as saying I think was one of the top 4 teams in the country. I expected to see you guys at the Final Four. How hard was it when you fall short of those goals, and how do you use those types of moments to not only drive your game, but as a team to drive the team's game?
Oh yeah, it was definitely really hard, falling short last year, especially because we know we had, a lot of potential, and we obviously had a really good regular season. So it was tough to see our season end that way.
Mm-hmm.
But at this, we obviously have to move on, and the only thing we can really do is get motivated by it. And no, we don't want to have that feeling again. So I think just really coming together in the hard moments, and obviously, overcoming adversity is a big thing for a team. So I think we kind of just got to stick together, do that, and know, we don't want to feel the feeling we had at the end of last year, kind of let it motivate us this year.
I am curious because last year you guys got off to, I want to say it was like an 11-0, 12-0 start. And so you had a setback early this year, and it was, a rout against Stanford. Do you feel like there's a value to that, to be able to have that early on? Because you guys have played like a team on a mission ever since.
Oh yeah, I think Stanford definitely was a little bit of a wake-up call for us. I mean, obviously Stanford's a really good team, but they beat us by more than they should have, and we're obviously a lot better than what we showed at Stanford. But it was good to have that early in the season rather than later, so we can learn and move on from that. And it's kind of really helped us, motivate us, especially in practice and in these next couple games, to not do necessarily what we did in Stanford, especially on the defensive end.
What changed there where the rubber hits the road at the defensive end? What are adjustments you guys were able to make? Because again, and just, for our listeners at home, you went out and beat Murray State 112-79. But the bigger thing for me is your last 3 games, you've allowed opponents 44 points, 57 points, and 63 points. And again, Tennessee and Princeton are teams that we're going to see into March and probably deep into March.
Yeah, I think a big thing for us was one-on-one defense needed to be better. I mean, we're getting too easily beat off the bounce, and so that's something we've definitely been really focusing on in practice. And then obviously just playing team defense. If one person isn't on the same page, it'll mess up the whole defensive plan. So I think a big thing was just one-on-one defense, and obviously helping out our teammates when we do get beat. And then just all around being tougher, getting the rebounds, getting loose balls, for sure is something we've been focusing on a lot.
Well, it's clearly working. It's clearly having an impact. And before we go in segment 3, I do want to go through how you see the future for yourself, for your team. Really eager to talk about it. Back in just a moment to talk about the future here in Indiana with Sara. But first, I want to tell the folks at home about FanDuel and the opportunity that FanDuel offers right now. Sara, you are from Stillwater, Minnesota. Do I have that correct?
Yep.
So friends and family are doubtless Minnesota Viking fans in large part, right? Well, the good news is that there are other teams that you can also bet on over at FanDuel for any winning $5 money line bet. And I say this, but I'm a lifelong New York Giants fan, so my team has been suffering in ways that make Minnesota look like a Super Bowl contender. But at FanDuel, they get a $5 bet, and if you win, you get $150 credited to your account. You use it on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. It's $150 if your team wins. So just go over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Who knows? Maybe the Vikings will surprise us down the stretch. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Yeah, tough times for the teams from your home state and my home state for sure. So let's talk before we go. And I want to know, first of all, how you visualize the future. Is that something that you use on a regular basis? Do you try and allow yourself to think about moments in time, goals? How does that play a part in the way you develop and evolve as a player?
Yeah, goals is definitely something I'm really big on. Just kind of helps motivate me and remind me each and every day of where I want to go and what I want to do. Especially goals as a team is also a big thing. Our team focuses on just kind of helps us remind us of specific things that we want to, achieve and accomplish as we go on in the season. So I think that's a big thing is goals.
For you personally, do you look at it from a numbers perspective? Is there a feel? How do you define what that is to go and meet those goals?
I think it can be numbers, but it can be also just, winning obviously is a big thing for me. I'm a big competitor. I want to win. So that's something, obviously I want to do. Something we're really big on at Indiana is wanting to win another Big Ten championship. There's nothing kind of like winning championships and winning in big games like that. So that's something we work towards doing each and every day.
Do you let yourself think about what it would feel like to be in Cleveland in April of 2024? Do you visualize Indiana in that Final Four?
Oh yeah, I think visualizing stuff like that is really important. Just kind of being able to have that type of feeling of being able to have all your work pay off and obviously win in big games, especially in the NCAA tournament. And obviously we work all year towards the end of the year in the tournament to be able to win down the stretch.
And then you are, I mean, we've gotten very used to seeing these designations senior plus as they talk about your year at Indiana, studying, as I understand it, sports management. I'm wondering the way in which you see your future, the way in which having a sports management background is a necessary part of going and especially playing at the next level when so much of the infrastructure of women's sports is just being built now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, well, I've studied it now for 2 years, but it's definitely something I'm really interested in and want to learn more about. And I think will definitely help me in the future as far as just my knowledge of sport marketing in general. And then obviously I want to try and continue playing basketball after college and see where that takes me. So it's definitely something important to me.
Has seeing Grace make this transition helped for you to be able to visualize it more easily and be able to sort of see how that's going to go?
Oh yeah, it's definitely good seeing somebody like and obviously played with play at the next level, specifically in the WNBA and overseas, and just kind of watching what she's been doing and how it's like over there is definitely something I definitely am obviously look towards doing in the future. So yeah.
Well, to our listeners at home, find any chance you can to watch Sara play and to watch Indiana play. I can tell you, if you're here on the East Coast, that Indiana is coming to Rutgers on December the 9th. I will be there for sure because I will make sure to experience it. Sara, we appreciate your time. To our listeners at home, we thank you for making us a part of your day every single day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow as we are 6 days a week. Until then, I am Howard Megdal wishing all of you a wonderful day.
Moren for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.